My Dakota name is Poughkeepsie, White Cloud. I'm from Dakota Territory in Manitoba, Canada. The Canadian government, they're not honoring the British treaty. So they're calling us refugees, and we're just going under.
On a controversial First Nations smoke shop in western Manitoba. The ruling was made in a Winnipeg court this morning, but as CTV's Josh Crabb reports tonight, the First Nation says the fight isn't over.
The province says Manitoba Sheriff Services will be working with RCMP and finance officials to close and take possession of the shop.
We need to look after our people, and that's what it's about. It's a life and death crisis right now.
Our people have been in the shadow for the longest time, ever since 1800. Our people joined the British, the War of 1812, and they went to Detroit. It carried on for 3 years. They won the battle. They had treaty 1851. There's other treaties they had. That's one of the reasons why 1862 the war happened. At that time, the Civil War was on. In 1876, that the war happened in Montana, Little Bighorn.
What my uncle has been fighting for all these years is, all we want to do is look after ourselves. You know, we don't want to be spoon-fed. We don't want anybody looking after us. You know, that community that we come from, Sioux Valley, was one of the most prosperous communities in Canada. Not reserves, but a prosperous community. Back in the day, they used to have steam threshing machines. We had 3 of them. And we bought these with our own money. You know, even though it was called a reserve, we still had our own money. We didn't believe in the Indian Act. We didn't want any handouts from the government. So we used to have gardens, and we used to plant crops, and we used to do everything. And our men used to go work in the neighboring with the farmers. And they also say that they used to take these threshing machines and they used to go and help the neighboring farmers. So what's wrong with that?
Albert is my cousin, and in some way, most of our people are relatives in Dakota, and Albert, he's 85 years old, and he's really strongly believe in our own culture, traditional ways.
Our prayers are short.
I feel so happy, but you know, when I look at the conditions of the world today, it makes me sad too, because you know, a lot of things are happening with the environment, and our Dakota people, they knew this was going to happen.
This is why we're doing what we're doing. We have to do this in an orderly fashion according to the laws of the Dakota people, and we have to start telling the truth. And the only way that's going to come out is with my uncle and the contact with God and the contact and prayer. This is why we're given all this.
It's all oral history, because as I was saying, our people are in the shadow. We can't. Our people long ago, it's forbidden to talk about Dakota 38, the mass hanging, because it's we fought for our land and died,
Canada's Idle No More movement gathers momentum at the country's First Nations groups being targeted by Stephen Harper's government, with protests and ceremonial gatherings held almost daily in many of the country's major cities. Well, Idle No More is spearheaded by Teresa Spence, leader of the Attawapiskat, a small native band in northern Ontario. Spence is now 22 days into a hunger strike on Ottawa's Victoria Island, just across from the Canadian Parliament. Well, Spence and other First Nations groups are demanding better living conditions for Canada's Aboriginals, and they're angry at the government of Prime Minister Stephen Harper, which they accuse of trying to erode their land and sovereignty rights.
You know, this movement is part of a global social movement that is taking a look at the neo-liberal free market economic agenda of governments like the current Canadian government and saying we want another world. You know, with catastrophic climate change, with issues of the loss of natural capital to sustain our ridiculous economic system.
Those days are gone, and now we have, you know, the internet is here to help us. The government can't come into our community and you know, just like back in the day when they used to attack our winter camps in the winter. You know, that's a time for rest. You know, you work all winter and you provide to store food and everything else for your people. And it would be a setting unlike this.
2011, I went down to the World Day of Prayer up in Dote, up in Minnesota. And at the very last day of that meeting, this little girl came. She was dressed up the way they were dressed in 1862 when they hung the 38. That was the worst atrocity that ever happened in the country they call the United States. Here, you know, and it's still happening.
It's not a matter of history. It's a matter of life. We're still here. You guys are still here. So this agreement is still in effect.